we're going to start the pre-lunch session. So as it's pre-lunch, I'm going to keep all of our presenters to time. I've got a little sign that says 2 minutes. So when the 2-minute sign comes up, you'll know you've got 2 minutes. So, but before we start the session, I'm going to just give the floor to our colleague Andreaosatos from FERE, who's going to give a little correction.
Sorry, but I was reading fast the report about white certificates. They merged together grids and transport, so it wasn't 50%, it's 13% for transport. Sorry for that, just want to clarify.
Thank you, Dario. It's always good to say sorry. So yeah, 1-3. But anyway, let's crack on with the next session. And so we're focusing on energy poverty. And I'm going to pass the floor to our first speaker, Laure Baudart from ATEE.
Thank you. So my presentation is basically an introduction for the following ones. So the idea is to tell you that energy poverty is something we're looking at in the ENSMOV Plus project. I see the problem now. So we're looking at energy poverty, and we are producing written documents about national case studies on energy poverty. And the next slide is supposed to show you what exactly we are looking at. So I'm gonna wait just a little moment. Oh yeah. So we're not sharing. So why are we looking at energy poverty in particular? It's because it's specifically targeted in the EED. Yes. In the third alinea of the Article 8, we see that special attention should be put upon people affected by energy poverty, vulnerable customers, people in low-income households, and people living in social housing. So the title of the presentation is Energy Poverty and also other target groups, and other target groups are the following ones. So in our case studies, what are we looking at? So in each country, we're looking at the policies that are especially targeted towards energy poor households, how the groups are defined, how the energy savings are accounted for and monitored, the main results of the previous policies, and what are the big lessons you learned in your experience in implementing those policies in your country. And also a stakeholder interview, so an interview of someone who is important to those policies in your country, so that they can give some practical insight on how they were implemented. So the countries that are identified to date are the following. So Austria, Ireland, UK, France, Belgium, Greece, and Slovenia. So most of those countries you're gonna hear, or you already have heard an oral presentation about them. So Ireland and UK were tackled in the Paris workshop in December 2023. So you can find the presentations and the recordings on the ENSMOV Plus website. So the UK one first was mostly targeted on their energy saving trusts. And the Ireland one was a presentation from the point of view of an obligated party. So both are on the website. And today we're going to hear about France, Wallonia, Greece, and Slovenia. So let's go ahead and hear about France from my colleague Solenne.
Thank you. Can you hear me right if I put the mic like this? No. So I'll take it in my hands. Thank you, everyone. I'm here part of ATEE, which is a stakeholder non-profit organization, and we provide stakeholders support on the interpretation of the regulatory text on the EEOS in France, and we also provide to the French ministry some technical support in order to create the catalog of energy saving action. For my part, I mostly work on buildings and particularly tertiary sectors, data centers, building automation and control systems. But today I'm here to talk to you about energy poverty in France. So I start my presentation with some facts about energy poverty in France. And if you have to remember one thing about my presentation, it's this slide. So it's not a good publicity, sorry. So the energy poverty white certificate are part of the French EEOS scheme, and it has been implemented in 2016. The white certificate for energy poverty are issued for renovation work in building toward household in situation of precarity. The certificates are more profitable than the classic certificates that can be an incentive for the obligated party. I know it's a presentation today, about alternative measures, but I think all of you are knowledgeable about EEOS. Maybe I can make a little survey. Who in the room know about the French EEOS or EEOS in general? So I can adapt my presentation. Okay, thank you. So I had a quick reminder of the French obligation scheme. In France, for period for 2 or 4 years, or maybe more now, energy suppliers of all type have to have been obligated by the ministry to make energy savings in all sectors. So it can be building, industry, transport, agriculture, and some more. And the certificates are represented by white certificate. And more particularly, we are talking about energy precarity certificate today. And we have a special unit to count it, which is the kilowatt-hour CUMAC, which is the energy saving cumulated on the lifetime of the action and also discounted by 4% per year. In France, there is 3 ways to produce white certificate. The first and the main one are the standardized actions. And basically the standardized action at the big catalog of 200 and more actions, which have a forfeit amount of energy saving. But for the action which cannot enter the catalog, we have also the specific action. I won't go in detail into that today. And we also have the programs which are not part of the whole installation of high performance equipment, but can target many social or behavioral aspects such as training, information, and of course, energy poverty since 2010. So before I go to the criteria that define energy poverty in France, I mean people eligible to energy poverty white certificate, I must show you some figures. First graph is the ratio of energy poverty certificate to the classic white certificate in France. As you can see on the graph, the energy poverty obligation has risen among the years, and it's going to be up to 60% in the next years. Also a slide I must show you. I told you about the 3 ways to produce white certificate in France before. And as you can see on this slide, mostly precarity white certificate, energy poverty white certificate are mostly produced by standardized action. So now that you know about the French scheme and you know that standardization are the main thing to produce energy precarity white certificate, I can go more in detail about the criteria in France that define households that are eligible to white certificate, to precarity, energy poverty white certificate. So there is three main criteria: the income of the household, the number of person in it, and the place where it lives, because the cost of living in Paris are much higher than the cost of living in all other regions of France. So the threshold, according to inflation and other factors, are updated each year by the French ministry. And for social loan works, in order to avoid them to go to each household and ask, what's your income, how many people, the French ministry also publish ratios which can be used instead of these three criteria. So a little context. This is the table that is on the law, and you can see that a household of 4 people living in Paris with an income under 48k euros by year could be considered as a household eligible to energy poverty rate certificate. Also, in the scheme, we have what we call bonuses. That means when you do a standardized action, thanks to the law, you can have a bonus premium, and the bonuses are higher for household eligible to energy poverty rate certificate. For example, there's a bonus on the heat systems, like installing new heat systems, and the bonuses are much higher for the household in situation of energy precarity. For the part of obligated party, so they must identify who is in situation of energy poverty or who is eligible to the certificate to fulfill their obligation. So there is a document they have to put in the file to deposit their precarity rate certificate. I think, in my opinion, it was made very easy to the obligated party to prove that the household is eligible. In fact, they have to provide one of these documents, so tax notice, proof of income tax, or in case of social building, just to prove that the household is living in a social building. And also the date of reference of this document can be anything, not really anything, but anything that is advantageous to the household. I'll end my presentation with some figures about the energy poverty rate certificate in France. So the graph on the right is what kind of action are majorly made toward household in situation of energy poverty. So I think it's quite classic for your countries also, insulation and heat pumps. And there's also a specificity in France, which is the deep renovation. But my colleague Daniela maybe will talk to you about that for the afternoon session for stakeholders, if you are in. And for a little bit of context on the deliveries, you can see that 800 terawatt-hour cubic have been delivered since 2022. And I'll make a rough conversion to euros that said that for 1 terawatt-hour cubic produced, there is about 5 million euros that is invested directly for energy poverty households. Finally, I have to make a little aparté on the programs. As I show you in this graph, the programs are not the main producer of white certificate. but they can be a trigger as it is mostly behavioral. And I want to show you 4 of the energy precarity program we have in France. The 2 first one are Slime Plus, which is a program that aims to facilitate the identification of households in energy poverty situation. And the second one is Toi d'abord, which help the construction and the housing of people in high precarity. So it makes social renting pretty much more accessible. 2 last programs for my presentation. The first one is MER, which accompany household in situation of precarity to go asking for all this help of these bonuses. They accompany in the process of depositing a file for energy poverty. And the last one, it's about guaranteed eco loans. I'm not very knowledgeable about the last one, so maybe Angélique, you can explain it.
Good morning, everyone. Just this mutation advanced loan, the idea is that for people that are living in energy poverty situations, they might not pay directly for the deep renovation of the house, but they will pay back when they will have to leave the house, or either because they are dead, so there is all the heritage and all of this, or because they want to change the house. So at that time, they will pay back the money that was allocated for and necessary for the renovation of the house.
Thank you, Angélique. Thank you all for listening to me. And I hope you got the main point about the energy poverty white certificate in France.
Well, thank you, Solenne. That was a great presentation. So do we have some questions from the audience? Yes, we do. So stay here.
Okay. Well, the question I have with the white certificates, and you have to deliver tax information and such, how do you deal with rules and regulations concerning privacy issues?
So about privacy, if you're dealing with white certificate programs, we have kind of agreements with all the holders of programs in order to ensure the privacy for everything. So this is already like structure within these programs for the implementations. And about the standardized actions, we got registry where you can deposit all that kind of information, but it's also you get some of this security and safety issues that are well looked at.
Okay, any other questions? Didier, so wait a minute, we're going to bring the mic.
Thank you. It's not really a question, it's more a comment. I was thinking what type of measures that you mentioned should be in MUR or not. The definition, it's what is national, and when you say program, when I say a program of 8 million euro, it affects 2,000, let's say, dwellings, so it's nothing. So this is why, especially on fuel poverty, we have always the difficulties to have massive policies. And as a, let's say, public body, what we are looking for, it's massive policy. So the white certificate scheme is a real massive policy dedicated for fuel poverty. The other program, one of them, 300 million, is visible. It could be considered as a real policy. The other one could be local programs. So this is something that we are facing in fuel poverty. What is really a small program with no replicability, and those which are more at national level.
Thank you, Didier. So that was a comment, not a question. But if you would like to answer, if you'd like to reply, then please do.
I think that the change in the policy, which used to target all energy poverty, and now is very much restrained to the last decile of the of the income, may be a massive policy for me.
Well, look, thank you so much. That was a really informative presentation. Thanks so much. We're now going to move to the next presentation, which is focusing on the Belgian region of Wallonia. And I think it's you, Jean-Sébastien, and your colleague Samuele Livraghi, or just you? Okay, so we just get the presentation loaded, and then we'll move to Jean-Sébastien. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Sam. So unfortunately, the expert from Wallonia was not available to come today. So what we did with, as Sam said, with my colleague Samuele Livraghi, is that we started an example, as Laure said earlier, as part of the ENSMOV Plus project. We are developing some examples. So don't look for them yet on the platform. They are not ready. So they are under development. But if you're interested, just subscribe to the newsletter of the project and you will be informed as soon as they are ready. And my objective today is to convince you why we selected the case of Wallonia, and I will give you some arguments for that. So the background first is that energy poverty in Wallonia is higher. I mean, the share of households in situation of energy poverty is higher in Wallonia than in the rest of Belgium, and it's quite a high rate, close to 30%, and it has been there for a while. So that's not a new topic to them. They have, you will see that some of the measures have been implemented since 1993, I think. So that's also another reason that they have a history on that, and that's really one of the key objectives of their energy policy. So not only energy efficiency policies, but energy policy as a whole, to make energy affordable for everyone. And as I said, they have a history. So even in the previous period, when there was no formal obligation for member states to achieve savings among priority groups, while it was strongly encouraged by Article 7 at that time, but not mandatory. But still, Wallonia already reported several measures that were either specifically or partly addressing energy poverty. And today I will present you the current ones that are mostly continuations of or extensions, let's say, of the measures that are reported in the previous period. So you have two, I grouped them into two groups. One is general schemes that are open to almost, let's say, all households or almost all of them. And you have specific provisions to make it more affordable, these schemes, to the lower income households. And then you have another group of measures that are 100% focused on energy poverty and supporting the household the most in needs. And maybe that's an answer to Didier's comment. Maybe sometimes having smaller programs, that's useful, because when we deal about energy poverty, that can go from, let's say, the lower part of the middle class until people that are really, let's say, excluded from the society. So for them, you cannot be acting with a massive policy, standardized, etc. You really need specific support and small. Let's say, over time, they are not smaller schemes, but they do one by one, because there is no other way to do it. And that's what I will also present with the, let's say, the example of Wallonia that is reporting their measures as a package. And that's also, that makes an echo to René's presentation earlier, that in the residential sector, more and more you will see package of measures considering the different types of situation you need to cover and the different types of barriers you need to address. So the first scheme, let's say the one for Didier, the massive one, the housing grants, that's open to everyone. That's a subsidy. It can be complemented by a loan. So that's a bit like what Angélique explained for for the loan scheme in France, but here that's a bit that's open, let's say, to more households. As you can see, the threshold on income is quite high, so that's almost all households that are available also for the loan, and that's just to cover the barrier of upfront cost, so that even if they get the grant later, they don't have to advance the money because they get the loan, and the loan deduce the grant from the reimbursement. And it's based on it requires an audit, so there is some discussion among the stakeholders that it make it maybe a bit complex, long to get approval, etc. But the idea is for this scheme, as it's for all households, is to target the higher performance possible, so to encourage the households to do the most energy efficient measures and to achieve, let's say, that's related to the question before about from Aniko about looking for high performance after work. So that's mostly the objective of this one, even if it can be done stepwise. And the differentiation, what makes it relevant to energy poverty is that the grant amount has a factor 1 to 6. So that's quite progressive, let's say, between the higher income class up to the lower income class. And for the lower income class, the grant can be up to 90%. It has been increased. It was 70 or 80 before. It has been increased last year, last July. You have a complementary scheme. So the first one is more, let's say, looking for deep renovation, even if it can be done stepwise. The second one is more for single actions. It targets especially roof installation. On roof installation, you don't have any limit on the amount of eligible cost, but it has to be assessed by an energy auditor first, or not an energy auditor, but an energy assessor. And then you can also do, let's say, low-cost installation measures or renovation measures up to 6,000 euros. If it's more, then you need to apply to the other grant scheme. Then the principle for differentiations and making it relevant to addressing energy poverty is the same. The grant amount is a factor 1 to 6, considering 5 income groups, and maximum grant rate 90%. Then we go to the part that are the measures specifically focused on energy poverty, so trying to help the ones that have more needs of support, either because it's more complicated for them to apply or because they have less financial capacities and so on. And this one, as you can see on the top right, is that's the oldest one, the one in place since 1993. And it has been revised not so many times. The last revision, that was mostly to increase the maximum grant rate. So as you can see, that's not a very high grant. So the idea is to help for, let's say, first energy saving actions that you can do to put a dynamic, let's say, and to help quickly the households that may have difficulties with their energy bills. So we still let's say that's for households that have a permanent dwelling and that can undertake some works. You have an income threshold that is related to the social integration income, so that's how we see that it's really targeted to the households in situation of poverty. Then if you go, there is this other scheme, so that would be smaller. Didier, I'm sorry about that, but this one is really tailored to the ones the most in need. So in that case, that's the social workers from the local social action center who will identify households that have really problems with their energy bills or energy consumption, and they will provide a support that is a one-to-one support. So they first provide some kind of advice. They can be a visit. So in a sense, if you know the electricity check in Germany, for example, that could be a bit similar, I think, to this type of scheme. And then that was also mentioned in René's presentation, the social housing stock can be also important. That's not so much in terms of share of the stock in Wallonia, that's 7%, but there is a strong plan for the current period until 2024 with the objective until 2030 to renovate half. So that's quite significant, half of the social housing stock. And here that's really to go to high performance to reach at least a B label, starting prioritizing. So first in the current period, until 2024, prioritizing the renovation of G and G label. So how are the priority groups identified? It depends on the three categories of schemes. So when it's a general scheme, that's, as you have seen, that's mostly based on income. And here, the thing related to the question on data privacy, actually, that's not the household that provide the data. That's directly an exchange of information between the administration. So let's say the administration in charge of the scheme, they contact probably the fiscal administration, and they get the data. Also, for the type of buildings, they get some data from the land registered. So that's also a way to reduce the amount of information asked to the applicants, and at the same time, you reduce also the frauds because you get already official data directly. So that's not the households telling whatever they want. That's what the administration tells. Then for the scheme focused on the households most in need, as I said earlier, that's the social workers who are in contact with households directly. So you can make here the parallel with some obligation scheme where you have partnership between obligated parties and local authorities or with charities and so on. So that's a bit the same, but here that's the social actions center that do that, and also prepare the applications, because usually also that's more difficult for these households to know how to apply for a grant, etc. So they do it together with the households. And for social housing, obviously, well, that's direct because that's a specific segment of the stock. What about the results? So look, again, always the same. So the NSPR 2023, the savings reported for 2021. You have two packages where these savings are distributed. The first one, that's the one with the measures for 100% focusing on alleviating the energy poverty. And the other one, that's the part of a package that gather all the measures for renovation of buildings. And in that case, the part that is considered as alleviating energy poverty represents about 1/3. So that's still, that's a good share, I would say. But even with that, having in mind, if you remember the share of energy poverty, that was close to 30%, and that would be 7.5% of the savings that are considered alleviating energy poverty for the moment. So you see the gap for the sub-target of Article 8, paragraph 3. And with that, I think that's it. And I hope that you found it interesting, and that I convince you that Wallonia is an interesting example to look at.
Thank you, Jean-Sébastien. Very informative, as usual. So do we have some questions from the audience for Jean-Sébastien? Yes. We have one online. Now then, how do we get someone to? Okay. So we have Wolfgang online. Now, can we get Wolfgang unmuted? Let me have a look. No, we don't try that. So Wolfgang, I don't know if you can put your question in the chat maybe. And yeah. So Wolf, we do actually have time, Jean-Sébastien, don't worry. We've managed to catch up very well. So the tension is unbearable. Oh, is he not typing? Okay. Okay. Well, look, let's move on to the next presentation. And if Wolfgang does manage to put his, oh no, here we go. Okay. The question is, with the small subsidy volumes, to assure that deep renovations can be carried out with energy poor households. So Jean-Sébastien, you caught that, right? No. So the question is, we've got some quite small subsidy amounts in absolute amounts, and how can you ensure deep renovation in energy poor households?
Well, sorry, that may be a confusion in what I explained. That's two different schemes. So there is one that is for deep renovation, and in that case, the grant rate for the lower income households can be up to 90%. So I think that's quite significant, and there is no As far as I remember, I'm not sure there is a ceiling for the main housing grant scheme, but you need the actions to be identified in an energy audit. So you don't do whatever you want, you do what the energy auditor considered the, well, there are several options. So the energy auditor don't tell you, you need to do that. They tell you, you can do that, that, or that. And the owners select one package, let's say, and then it's, I would say, fairly subsidized. And then the other one that Wolfgang is referring to, indeed, that's not for deep renovation, that's more for urgent actions to help households in difficult situations.
The energy savings.
The way it's monitored for Article 7, that's mostly based on dim savings, but using also when in the application form, the applicant needs to provide a number of details like the type of action done, some details about the dwelling, which makes possible to adapt the dim savings to, I would say, fairly disaggregated type of situation. But that's still based on estimations indeed.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean-Sébastien. So, right, now on to our next case study from Greece, and we have Haris Andreaosatos here to explain more. So over to you, Haris.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Hungarian Energy Authority agency for hosting this workshop, and Jean-Sébastien for yesterday's project meeting, coordinating the yesterday's project meeting. Now, energy poverty is a multi-dimensional and increasing phenomenon, as we all have realized so far. It doesn't work, does it? Yep, it's okay, it works. Thank you. Now, I was saying that energy poverty is an increasing phenomenon, and today's presentation is about tackling or trying to tackle this phenomenon and how to measure the energy savings from the alternative measures that we have implemented and being implementing in Greece. Now, talking about the target for alleviating energy poverty, the objective is based on the Energy Poverty National Action Plan and also based on the previous NECP target, which is actually illustrated on this slide. Now, we have as a target to reduce the energy poverty, to reduce in energy poverty by 50% by 2025, and the baseline year is 2016. And after 2025, we have a further reduction, plus 25%, so have a reduction in energy poverty by 75% by the end of this decade 2030. And this is again based on the National Action Plan for Greece. Now, what is the definition of energy poverty? It is stated in quite a lot of official documents, so I will skip the definition. What we have to keep in mind is that over there, that index over there, and the two conditions, condition A1 or condition 2. In other words, these two conditions must be satisfied at the same time. And very briefly, the first condition deals with incorporates the ability of each household to ensure a minimum level of coverage of energy needs. And the second condition, that also be satisfied at the same time, ensures that the inability to meet a minimum level of energy needs is due, among other things, to the lower net income that the household may have. So, two conditions, both of them must be satisfied at the same time. Now, very important issue is the monitoring of energy poverty. Now, those authorities that are responsible for the management and implementation of the policy measures have to choose between two, and I underline, two alternative approaches for a bottom-up monitoring of energy poverty. Based on the Energy Poverty National Action Plan, these two alternative approaches are, first of all, statistical model for identifying the low-income households, or alternative approach for identifying, again, vulnerable households. So this is based on the Energy Poverty National Action Plan. Now, let's have a look at the first option, the statistical model for identifying low-income households. Now, this approach includes the development of a mathematical model, quite complex one, and logarithmic regression equation, which identifies essential characteristics of the low-income households. That means that we have to gather some data by conduction of a household budget survey, and then we take the data and we input the data to the mathematical model, i.e. the regression analysis equation. Now, what is the outcome of the regression analysis based on the index which includes the two conditions that must be satisfied at the same time? Here you see on the screen the complex equation, logarithmic equation. It's not only numbers. It also has some figures like electricity, which is multiplied by a specific number. So it also depends on electricity, on the year, referring to the construction year, the use of central heating system, the net family income, the total number of occupants, the rented accommodation, the number of tenants over 65 years of age, the heating degree days, and the unemployment number. It's quite complex equation. And the other approach, the other alternative approach is based on the net income, which is round about 4,400 euros, excluding any possible allowances. And at the same time, the cost of yearly consumed electricity must be lower than the price of 597 euros at the same time. Now, having said that, let us see the measures that have been taken for tackling low-income households. First of all, we had the Save Energy at Home program, launched in 2014 up to 2017. It was designed for implementing energy-saving interventions in the residential building sector. What about the objectives? The aim was to reduce the energy needs as well as the consumption of conventional fuels. And it was operated by the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, funding from the EU Next Generation EU. Now, what was the procedure followed? First of all, we had the submission of all applications based on a particular web-based program on the internet, supporting documents with respect to type of economic viability, for example, subsidies, security, interest-free loan. And we had also some technical and energy data based on energy performance certificate. Now, the important thing for this program is the energy class before as opposed to energy class after the intervention. So we had to compare the energy savings before and after the implementation, the energy efficiency interventions, based on the EPC, which is issued before and after the implementations. Now, based on these three criteria, the applications, some of the applications have been approved and some other have been rejected. Now, during the first period of the program, this is the economic criteria for the applicants. And talking about low-income households, it wasn't really that the case of tackling this phenomenon, because you can see on the second column here, the individual income was up to 10,000 euros, quite high actually for low-income households in Greece. But anyway, this is the feeling of having individual income, family income, and the grant depending actually on each individual income or family income for each applicant. After the first period, and 3 years ago, we had the initiation, the launch of the follow-up, if you like, program. And it was the energy upgrading of residential buildings, launched in 2021. Again, it was based on, for those residential buildings needed to be implemented and improve their energy profile. Again, the objective was to reduce energy needs and consumption of conventional fuels. And as before, it was operated by the National Recovery and Resilience Plan with funding from EU Next Generation EU. Now, we learn from our mistakes, if you like. I don't want to call it mistake. What is mistake? Mistake was, let's say, that we assumed that if we wanted to tackle the energy poverty or low-income households, we had to, let's say, decrease the family income as a main criteria for the applicant to submit the application for this program. So from 10,000 euros, we minimize that, we have it down to 5,000. So up to 5,000 euros was the main criteria for individual income for those applicants who wanted to submit their application to this program. Now, for this program, we had again to compare two energy performance certificates, one before, prior to the interventions, and after the realization of the energy efficiency interventions. Now, the eligible application to the program, according to the first energy performance certificate, would have been from C to the very low energy efficiency of H. And the target was from D, going back from D to A. That means 3 energy classes. Every household had to be improved by 3, at least 3 energy classes. Okay, in order to be eligible for applying to this program. Now, after the implementation of the energy efficiency interventions, indicative, this is very important, how we verify the energy savings. Indicative inspections must be take place in order to verify the achieved energy savings, as well as the minimum requirement based on the second energy performance certificate. So this is the way how to verify the energy savings. Table 1 shows measure 1 and measure 4, referring to those energy efficiency programs I have described just a few seconds ago. Now, measure 1 is the Save Energy at Home program, initiated in 2014. You'll see that we have data up to 2020. Why is that? Because it was launched for the first time, such a huge program. It had a very low pace. We had to do quite a lot of modifications throughout the implementation of this program. It stopped in 2017, but we realized that quite a lot of applications had to be rejected, and some others had to be in place of those, the rejected ones. That's why we had some more implementation, energy efficiency implementations after 2017 up to 2020. That's why we have data up to 2020. But at the same time, the second phase of the same program started as energy upgrade of residential buildings, having as an income of greater or at least 10,000 euros as individual income. Now, you can see that we have data from 2018 up to 2020. So while the second phase has been implemented for 2 years, we still had some more energy efficiency savings based on the first phase of the program. That's why by adding up the two yellow cells, we can see that up to the total of 2,450 kilotons as cumulative savings, the savings from the energy upgrade of residential buildings and from the Save Energy at Home program had quite a lot of contribution to the total. What is the contribution? Up to 60%, 16%, as opposed to the other individual programs, alternative programs. You see there, it is 150 plus 231. If we add up those two, we have the total of 390 kilotons of oil equivalent, which is substantially quite a lot compared to the other individual alternative measures. Now, the other program, the energy upgrade of a residential building, we having an income as an economic criteria of up to 5,000 euros, was launched in 2021. It is the first measure. And you can see that for those measures, energy efficiency, the target was 52.3 kilotons of oil equivalent. This is a projection up to 2030. But we realized that instead of having 52 kilotons of oil equivalent, we have only 31.34 kilotons of oil equivalent. We're still behind. We have quite a lot of work to do. We hope that in the coming years will catch up and will improve our projections. Now, that means that from, let's say, 10,000 applications, households that have submitted their applications for the program, 2,321 households have been addressed as low-income households. And for those households, the total annual energy efficiency savings have been measured to be 4.92. Okay. On the left column here, we have the number, the number of measures. Now, this year, for example, we have the entry of measure number 10, which is the energy efficiency obligation schemes. So we'll have, a new set of data for the energy efficiency obligation schemes. Okay. As I said, we are behind, but hopefully we'll have will be achieving our targets in the coming years. Now, the lady from France referred to the new directive and Article 8. But if we look at the Annex 5 of the 1791 directive, EED, we'll see that the energy savings of people affected by energy poverty, were applicable people living in social housing on the basis of engineering estimates using standardized occupancy and thermal comfort conditions, or parameters such as . That means that we have to find out a way of calculating the energy savings for those low-income houses. How this can be done? First of all, we conduct energy inspection and we issue energy performance certificates in order to classify the building based on A to H energy class prior to energy efficiency interventions. By whom? By energy inspector. After that, we conduct energy inspection and issuing the energy performance certificate in order to classify the building based on on A to H energy class after the energy efficiency interventions take place. By whom again? By an energy inspector, a different person from the one before, prior to the implementation of the energy efficiency intervention. We have the calculation of a yearly primary energy consumption, and then we convert it to final energy consumption. Okay, so we have FEC before and FEC after. We have the input data, tables for monitoring energy savings, and reported to the Commission. I have 1 minute. I'll be very quick. First of all, the monitoring and verification of the energy savings. We have the Technical Chamber of Greece, who is in charge of effective monitoring, timely monitoring, effective and reliable verification of the implementation of all energy efficiency measures. And the verification methodology of energy savings. First of all, we have the conduction of the preliminary audit for the whole set of intervention based on specific documentation, and a selection of sample of energy efficiency interventions, and then on-site detailed inspections, also taking into account the EPC, which is issued before, prior to the interventions, and after the realization of the energy efficiency interventions by 2 independent auditors. Lastly, we have the authorities that are responsible for monitoring and verification of those policy measures. We have specific unit of the Ministry of Energy and Environment. It is called the strategic unit. And also this strategic unit is in charge of undertaking the procedure of the monitoring and verification mechanisms will be independent of those carrying out the monitoring and verification of the low-income households. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Harris. And some good tips there for people who are going to be looking to estimate the energy savings from their energy poverty programs in the upcoming reporting cycle. Right, do we have some questions for Harris? Didier, wait a minute. I'm going to come around the back. No. We've got to use the mic for the people online. People online.
Yeah, the fuel poverty in Greece, it's mainly on for summer uses on air conditioning. So what kind of lesson we can learn for classic space heating? I mean, your policy is really dedicated to air conditioning, or we can apply part of your ideas for space heating in our region.
Well, to be honest, we had a program for replacing the old air conditioning units. But I think that we had a lot of applications for replacing those old air conditioning units. But to be honest, who cares? A low-income household will not care about the air conditioning system. They don't have, even if they get some amount of money, some grant, they don't care about replacing the old air conditioning system. I mean, they have other issues, serious issues to think of. My idea is that if we have to launch a program, even if the existing programs have to give some added value and some real results, significant results, then we have to increase the grant rate. Okay. Let's say up to, as you said, there was a program up to 90%, if not 90, 95. I mean, they don't have money for the everyday life, so they don't care about energy savings. So have to increase the grant rate. Okay. So in Greece, it's not only air conditioning system. It is a problem. It is an increasingly phenomenon, okay, due to the environmental conditions in every country. But this is not really the case. We don't. Most of us do care and do want to change the air conditioning, our air conditioning systems, to have new ones with inverters and with high energy class rate. But this is not the case. I cannot think of something else other than increasing the grant rate if we want to support and have some significant results for energy poverty in Greece and in any country, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you so much, Harris. That was a great presentation. And we now come to our last presentation from Matevž Pušnik. I don't know if I mangled your name. Who's going to tell us about the experience in Slovenia? So over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry, my voice is acting weird now. So, but hello everyone. My name is Matevž Pušnik. I would like to thank the guests, the hosts for hosting us, and also hi to everyone in the on the online. My name is Matevž Pušnik. I come from Josef Stefan Institute. We are a partner of ENSMOV Plus project. And I will present Slovenian experience with tackling energy poverty in households in our country. So, okay, I will skip the contents part. The current state in Slovenia, we have calculated, or according to our National Statistical Office, there are 7.2% of households live in energy poor conditions. This is the data for 2022, which translates to 62,000 households, or approximately 5% of all population in Slovenia. What are the criteria that some household belongs to this target group? They have to live at the households that live under the risk of poverty threshold and met at least one of the conditions that are stated here. So they are one of them is of the conditions is that they are unable to provide adequately heated house, or they are late for payments of housing costs, or they live in conditions that are not worthy of living in. So leaking roof, damp walls, floors, or rotten windows or frames. So to tackle these issues, the ministry has prepared the energy poverty alleviation action plan that was published in November of 2023. Also, our institution was involved in the preparation of this action plan, or in support to the ministry, along with the Faculty of Economics of University of Ljubljana and Institute for Economical Research. These are just some of the examples of conditions for the people that live in energy poverty. Okay, I wanted to state that the main national authority that is dealing with energy poverty in Slovenia is our alternative measure authority called EcoFund. So they prepare all the tenders and they take care of the administrative and implementation process of these measures. So in energy poverty alleviation action plan, we have set some targets. The main umbrella target for reducing energy poverty in Slovenia is to significantly decrease the share of households that live in energy poverty. As I already mentioned, the current status is 7.2%, and up to 2030, the plan is to reduce this to the interval between 3.8 and 4.6%. Another target that we are targeting up to 2030 is to implement measures in at least 8,000 energy poor households. And the target that is related to the Article 8 of the EED recast, we are planning to achieve the savings between the period of 2021 and 2030 that amount to 573 gigawatts, which means approximately 60 gigawatt hours per year. But this number is still in discussion, since we are in the process of revising of our NECP, so it's not a final number, but it's soon to be. So where we will get, or where we get funds for these measures? At the end of last year, the government allocated funds from National Climate Change Fund for purpose investments in measures for alleviating energy poverty. The amount of funds that were allocated was 24 millions. This is one important part. we are also counting on the Social Climate Fund, especially for the period of 2026 up to 2032. Slovenia has somehow reserved funds that amount up to 300 million for various purposes, and we are also counting on these funds. Of course, we have to provide social climate plan by June 2025 to be able to collect or to receive these funds. We have estimated that for the period of 2026 up to 2030, we are missing around 85 million euros for the measures that are tackling energy poverty in Slovenia. Currently we are tackling these issues with few initiatives. As I already mentioned, EcoFund is responsible for doing that, and we already have some programs that enable the replacement of fuel boilers with new wood biomass boilers, and to assure some energy renovation in this target sector. And the subsidies for these measures are 100%, but we have a cap on how much funding can be attributed for a certain project. Another project is called Zero Project. This project actually provides free energy and free advice from energy experts to the energy poor household, and the customers are also the entitled target households are also entitled to some simple measuring devices or some devices for reduction of water use that they obtain freely. All of these actions are financed from the Climate Change Fund. And another project that that finished in 2023 at the end of this year, the last year, was the 0500 program. This was somewhat of a pilot project for providing and implementing measures for renovating energy poor households. Around 400 households were included in this project, and 3.5 million euros were the subsidies that were allocated to implement those measures. This, as I already mentioned, this program was a pilot project, public call that is tackling energy poverty, which was also published at the end of last year. In that case, 20 million euros is available for these measures, and 100% financial incentives are available. So, okay, I will not go through these measures, but you can see which measures are eligible for the subsidies, and the roof of the subsidies is for one measure or for combination of measures is set at 18,000 euros, which is including VAT. And in case where you combine measure E, which is a system for preparation of hot sanitary water with new boiler on wood biomass, you cannot exceed 12,000 euros, including VAT. And on the right, you can see the subsidies for certain technologies that are available. What I need to emphasize is the importance of knowledge and experts that are involved in the in these projects. Of course, the people who are living in energy poor conditions, they do not have the knowledge to do all the administrative work to apply for such projects. So what we are doing is actually we are using so-called national coordinators, which are based in the local environment, and they are communicating with social services, trying to find or to support such projects, and they are also appointed to guide the participants throughout the whole process. Another important person that is involved in the process is energy expert. This expert comes to the household, and then he sets the baseline, which is important because the baseline actually is one of the conditions that have to be made for the eligibility of the project, because the condition is set to that the energy required for heating must be greater than 150 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. So this is one of the conditions that have to be met. So again, importance, human capacities, and local coordination network in the local environment is really important. So to conclude, energy poverty, of course, has to be recognized as a shared challenge throughout the whole society, taking into account solidarity, innovation, and sustainability. As Harris already mentioned, that monitoring and evaluation is also important, but in our case, we monitor the savings, similar that Jean-Sébastien already explained on the Wallonia case. Actually, we are determining the baseline on site, and then through DIM calculation of savings, the savings are calculated and reported to energy agency to be included in the Article 8 savings. Yeah, of course, each country that is dealing with energy poverty has to have a clear vision how to do that, and action plan definitely helps on doing so. So at the end, yeah, there are just some of the examples of the measures that were taken under the scope of energy poverty tackling measures. The refurbishment of envelope, the roof refurbishment, and some windows and doors. So, but again, it's not a deep renovation of buildings. It's just that through those measures, the people who live there have slightly better living conditions. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I would gladly answer.
Okay, thank you so much, Matevž. A great presentation. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, we do, from Renee.
It's maybe it's not as much a question as it is a comment. Under the concerted actions, we set up an expert study group on the correlation between energy poverty and health. And we did some studies there. We're going to present that on Friday. Because we were talking money as well, and talking money is important in this case because health does come into it. You were talking about leaking roofs, damp houses, moldy houses. it has an effect on the health of people. And looking at payback times, if you take health in consideration, helping people with energy poverty in moldy and damp houses pays back quite rapidly if you take health into consideration. And in the Netherlands, we are already talking with health insurance companies to pay for people living in bad housing conditions to refurbish these houses. We didn't get that far yet because they're private companies and they don't really want to pay. But we started out with these talks, and I think that's important for most European countries to look at that from that side as well.
I'm going to. Do you want, Matevž? Do you want to come in on it?
Yes, the consortium who was preparing the national action plan for these measures was also a member of a consortium was Institute for Economic Research, and they have this macroeconomic model that takes into account also this kind of issues, but we didn't get very far. But we have looked slightly in that direction, and we are aware of it. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Matevž. Yes, just one other thing. When I was in the British government, actually, way back in 2012, there was some research which I don't know whether you're familiar with, but which linked conditions with respiratory health conditions owing to the mold, but also mental health conditions associated with stress about not being able to pay your bill. So yeah, definitely something to consider. The insulation on prescription model that we were trying to work with, because the National Health Service in the UK basically is a publicly funded health system, and so there's a clear benefit for the state, but trying to get two arms of state, the health service and the climate changes, yeah, it's not easy.
Question for the audience. Just yeah, what we've encountered was a huge challenge in dealing with households that the tenants that live there as a tenants. So, because this is only tackling the ones that are owning the place, or at least half owning. So did someone get far on that, or not? Oh.
Okay, I'm going to pass to Jean-Sébastien. So thanks everyone who presented in the session. Jean-Sébastien's now going to just take us into the lunch break with a couple of updates.
Thank you. So first, just to answer to Matevž, so if you're not familiar with this other project, there is another. It was a Horizon 2020 project named ENPOR, ENPOR, that was dedicated to energy poverty in the private rented sector. And their recommendations and conclusions have just been published a few months ago. It was finished earlier this year. So thank you very much for attending this workshop, for your patience with the little issue at the beginning. I think I'm speaking especially for the one online. I hope it was fine afterwards. I thank again very much MEC for their welcome and hosting the workshop. We had very good conditions here, and yesterday as well for the project meeting. Some of you will stay here. Maybe Regina, you will explain about the lunch, but I think it's just behind. And yeah, and don't forget, look at the agenda. On the bottom of the agenda, you have a QR code that's for the feedback survey. Please make it, that's our money, let's say, in a sense, to get the project approved by CINEA at the end. So if you like it, please tell us. First, it gives us motivation for the rest of the project, and second, that's helpful for us to report to CINEA. And before we close, I hand it over to Regina.
Just a quick sentence. If somebody is heading to the NCP meeting of CAEED to Novotel Hotel, then he or she can join me. I will go there by bus. But remember, we need to start at 1:30, so be quick with the lunch. Okay, thank you.